I might be a little late to this one. I meant for this to come out during the summer when it was a bit more relevant, but life just got a little bit crazy for me, so I'm doing it now.
Hey, I just found out it's November. What the f happened?
So we just got a new Superman movie this last summer, and I really enjoyed it. I felt it was not only a great Superman movie, but a really good start to the new DCU. And while most people agree with me, there are those who didn't really enjoy it. Just to be clear, I don't mind if people disagree with me. Movies are a form of art, and art is subjective. If you don't like Superman, that's totally valid. However, that doesn't mean all criticisms of the film are valid, truthful, or fair, same as all movies. Some film reviewers gave the movie a bad review with such critiques, Jeremy Jahns being one of them. And that's what I want to talk about today. Just some disclaimers here at the start. Much like my video debunking some of Doug Walker's video on the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie, I don't think Jeremy is wrong about all of his criticisms, nor is this a personal attack on him. In fact, I'm actually a fan of Jeremy. He's one of the very first YouTuber film critics that I discovered more than a decade ago. Whenever a highly anticipated film comes out, his reviews are amongst the first that I check out. But in the last few years, I've noticed that Jeremy has become a bit more jaded and cynical. I wouldn't go as far as to say that he's become some sort of grifter who's just rage baiting for clicks. I firmly believe he's always honest while talking about films. It's just that he can be a bit uncharitable and harsh at times. His video on Superman being one such instance. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm not going to go through each of his points, just the ones I feel are unfair or maybe not very accurate to the events of the film. So let's get into it.
But let's be honest, we were all ready for that hopeful vision of Superman on screen again. And we got it in the form of this Superman who tortured a world leader with a cactus. To be fair, at least Lois called him out. Was like, you mean torture? He does kind of come across as an asshole there, right? He's like, the spikes were, it didn't hurt that much, but he doesn't know that. He doesn't know how much cactus spikes hurt. How could he qualify that?
Maybe Clark doesn't know what a cactus feels like, but I actually have some experience with this. When I was around 14 to 15, I was out shooting clay pigeons in the desert. Between flurries, I set the shotgun down and went to tie my shoe. I lost balance and actually fell into a small cactus. It stung to be sure, but I don't know if I'd say it's too extreme a pain to inflict on a genocidal maniac. Jeremy seems to leave that context out here, that the man that Clark pushed up against a cactus was attempting to commit a genocide against a nation.
We would have a more serious discussion, that's all.
More serious than tearing up his back on a cactus.
Gurkos was gonna kill people. You seem to keep forgetting that.
See? Clark's got my back, and not up against a cactus. Personally, I actually really appreciate that Superman didn't just use harsh language to stop the invasion. He didn't kill anyone, but he still smashed some military equipment and taught a lesson to Gurkos, the man in charge of the Baravian invasion. People like that won't listen to some Boy Scout saying, "Can't we all just hold hands and get along, guys?" They needed a sharp reality check, which is what Superman gave them. I can't remember who this was, but someone back in 2013 was talking about Man of Steel and the controversial decision to have Superman kill Zod by breaking his neck in that movie. They said that if Superman wasn't willing to do something like that, they wouldn't trust them. I feel the same logic applies here. I wouldn't trust a Superman who was afraid to use a little show of strength to dissuade the evil maniacs of his world. Wait a minute. I just remembered who said that.
I would argue if Kal-El didn't break Zod's neck to save that family, I'd be like, you lack the conviction to do what's necessary to save people. I do not have my trust in you. Where's Magog?
I don't know, Jeremy. Seems like he got the concept back in 2013. Just apply that here.
You know, a big thing about this movie, I've seen other reviewers touch on this, and I do agree that this is a BVS overcorrection. The Snyderverse, I'm not going to try to compare this to the Snyderverse too much, but there are moments where it's like, that's a fair comparison. The Snyderverse feeling like it had to fast track the setup for their cinematic universe because the MCU had them beat. They had to jump on them by a few years. Not gonna do that this time around. This time around, it's a cinematic universe that's already been set up. We're just coming into the middle of it.
The Snyderverse and the DCU aren't on opposite ends of the spectrum as far as the speed of the setup. The issue with the DCEU's pacing was that they started off with a solo Superman movie where no other non-Superman heroes or villains were mentioned, also with no setup for a larger DC universe, and then they went straight into a Justice League prequel movie in Batman v Superman. A movie where they pretended metahumans had been there the whole time when it's obvious that that wasn't the plan. It was was a transparent attempt to play catch up with Marvel. If anything, I feel the DCU is doing what the DCEU did, just in a more organic way, and they're doing it from the jump. If the DCU was overcorrecting this error from the Snyderverse, they'd be going way too slow with way too many origin films and hardly any crossover events.
But it did leave me with that feeling of, who are these people? Why do we care? The movie assumes that you already know. I know Christopher Reeve's Superman backstory. I know Henry Cavill's Superman backstory. I know some of the comic book Superman backstory, but I don't really know this Superman backstory. I also don't know much about the Justice Gang, who they are.
The movie doesn't need to show you his origin. We get all of the vital information on this version of Superman that we need, and we get to see his personality on full display. We know he's an alien, we know his home planet was destroyed, we know he believed he was sent to Earth to save humanity until it's revealed they actually sent him to rule over the planet. We know he's a bit of a dork, we know he loves Lois Lane, and we know he values all life, even the lives of squirrels and giant fire-breathing kaiju. You don't need to rely on any other Superman media for this either. It's all explained in this film. Same with the Justice Gang. We may not know their origins, but we know their power sets and their personalities. Guy Gardner is an arrogant jerk, but someone who is still heroic. Hawkgirl has a jaded, nonchalant personality, but still has empathy underneath all of that. Mr. Terrific is a genius who appears to be robotic, but actually has quite a bit of personality, a healthy ego.
I can help. I don't need your help. I'm goddamn Mr. Terrific.
And even a dry sense of humor.
Lex Luthor, why does he hate Superman so much? I know why Lex traditionally hates Superman, but the movie doesn't illustrate why this Lex in particular hates this Superman. I mean, yeah, there is a tell don't show moment in here in which he kind of monologues about it, but you don't feel the lead up. You don't see the lead up.
So Jeremy just blatantly contradicted himself there. He first claims that Lex Luthor's motivations for hating Superman aren't explained in this movie, then turns around and says that they actually are, but just not in a way that he would have preferred or in a way that he felt, to use his terms. But that first claim is just not true. Lex's motivations are explained in this movie more than once.
I can't stand the metahumans, but he's so much worse. Superman. He's not a man, he's an it. A thing with a cocky grin and a stupid outfit that's somehow become the focal point of the entire world's conversation. Nothing's felt right since he showed up.
I'm not dim. I'm aware envy consumes my every waking moment. I know when they mention Galileo or Einstein or one of these other twits in the same breath as me, I feel a tide of vomit burn the back of my throat. But at least Galileo did something. He wasn't some dopey Venusian catapulted onto this planet just to have the world fawn over him, because his strength illuminates how weak we all really are.
So the film clearly establishes Luthor's motivations, which Jeremy acknowledged, but why did he say that he didn't know what those motivations were? If your issue is the way in which they tell you his motivations, just say that.
And this movie is a lot of series of events stitched together, and if you cut some of those events out, it wouldn't really affect the plot too much, and you might actually have some more time to flesh out some of the other characters like Lex Luthor. Easiest thing to point to is that kaiju that he fights. But Lex Luthor somehow came across this kaiju, and now Superman has to fight him. It's a really weird splice where they're like, he'll get bigger. Next scene, he's big and Superman's fighting him. No setup, no care. It almost feels like another overcorrection from Superman Returns. The whole thing about Superman Returns is, well, Superman never punches anything. He never fights anything, really. He actually has his fair share of fights in this movie, so I don't think he needed to fight the kaiju.
The kaiju fight does feel like a distraction in this movie, but that's deliberate because it is a distraction. It's a distraction that Luthor created so he could infiltrate the Fortress of Solitude so he could find something to use against Superman.
Can you get in?
Might take a while. What if the Kryptonian shows up?
Don't worry. I'm creating a distraction.
With that in mind, I think it makes perfect sense that they don't spend too much time on showing it grow to full size or even how Luthor acquired it. Even though it's a distraction, it still does help flesh out the characters and world a bit more. This fight illustrates that this version of Superman cares about all life, and not just people, but dogs, squirrels, and even the kaiju itself. It helps introduce us to the Justice Gang, their powers, their dynamic, and how their brand of heroism differs from Superman's. It also demonstrates to us just how fantastic fantastical this world is by showing us that while people are scared about what's going on, they're also not very shocked at what's happening. Plus, it's also just a fun scene in its own right.
Oddly, the themes in this movie that make this feel like, yes, the Superman we want, they're not new themes. They're just kind of executed differently. The concept that it's the choices you make and the things you do that make you you, like, that's most any superhero movie ever.
Pup didn't like that, I guess. Superhero movies are like cheeseburgers. You're not really going to make a cheeseburger that defies all expectations at this point because it's all been done before. All you can do is try a different execution and hope people like it, which, even according to Jeremy, they managed to do here.
Then they make Lex Luthor this pissy little brat knocking pencils off his desk so his little interns have to clean it up just because he's being petty. I don't know, I just don't like Lex Luthor like that. I like it when Lex Luthor is being menacing.
It's totally valid if Jeremy doesn't like how Lex Luthor acts here, but he's yet again contradicting himself. This is another scene fleshing out this version of Lex Luthor.
I know why Lex traditionally hates Superman, but the movie doesn't illustrate why this Lex in particular hates this Superman.
Because he's envious, petty, and doesn't like being shown up, as demonstrated in the scene you brought up.
There's just so much that happens in this movie, some of which has to do with Superman.
That's not true. The plot of this movie is Lex Luthor trying to take down Superman while Superman responds to all of his various schemes. There isn't a single frame of this movie where that isn't the focus, even in scenes where neither Luthor or Superman are on screen.
I would have rather the movie showed the friction, the conflict, and the reason there is friction and conflict between Superman and Lex Luthor more.
Lex Luthor wants to defame and kill Superman because of his massive ego and insecurities. Superman wants to stop Lex Luthor because he wants to live. It's fine if you wanted more, but the entire movie is focused around that.
And he says in the movie he did all of this just to kill Superman, which begs the question, why didn't he kill Superman when he could have killed Superman? When Metamorpho is in the movie just for the sake of being Mr. Kryptonite Hands to weaken Superman, then Lex Luthor is playing Russian roulette with someone else? That would have been a pretty good time to kill Superman.
Lex's goal isn't just to kill Superman. He wanted the public to feel the same way as he did so that when he eventually did kill him, he would look like the savior of humanity. This is why he's trying to make deals with the government and appearing on talk shows.
I skipped over. All right, so there's a pocket universe that Lex has created. He has the tech to create a pocket universe. And that's where he keeps his prisoners, mostly girlfriends who besmirched him online.
Again, not true. There's only one ex-girlfriend shown in the Pocket Universe prison when Superman is first taken there, and then Eve is taken there after she betrays Lex. This is a nitpick, but still worth pointing out.
Like when Lex goes to the Fortress of Solitude, why didn't he have Ultraman haul a big bomb there to blow it up? Why give Superman a home to even go back to?
This isn't an invalid question, but it is answerable. In order for them to translate the message, they needed the Kryptonian database as a frame of reference. Lex also has the world's top linguistic and computer forensics experts analyze the message to use their credibility, so he would need it for that later on. Not to mention, having the Fortress of Solitude to study would certainly be too tempting for Lex to just destroy it, though the movie could have done a better job clarifying this, perhaps a line or two of dialogue from Lex.
I do make the argument after Ultraman was in his big chrome dome suit and he beat Superman's ass and the fight was over and he just kind of flies to the beach outside the city. Slightly. No one with a cell phone was like, hey, that guy who just beat Superman's ass just landed on that beach over there. I'm going to upload this to YouTube or whatever they have, the YouTube equivalent of the world. Anyone want to check that out?
That is a fair argument, but I would argue that the beach is actually much farther from the city than Jeremy described, and it's well guarded. Anyone who goes near there would likely be thrown into the Pocket Universe. Not to mention, Lex has tons of lawyers and PR guys, so no doubt any videos uploaded would be discredited somehow. Though the movie doesn't expand on this idea either way, so Jeremy's point is still at least somewhat valid.
But I couldn't shake the fact that having Krypto out there in the world, even if he's helping Superman, is really irresponsible. If Krypto ends up seeing a kid with a ball, throwing the ball to his dad or something, and that catches Krypto's eye, and Krypto does this to them, they die.
That's a fair point. Or at least it would have been a fair point if Krypto was just left wandering the planet unsupervised. The movie establishes early on that Krypto is being watched at the Fortress of Solitude. The reason he's with Superman in the third act is because the fortress's safety has been compromised, so Superman feels he's better off with him. Plus, the city had been evacuated at that point, so there was no danger.
If Superman had his house in order and had Krypto trained like John Wick has his dog trained, I could have relaxed and been like, yeah, Superman's got this.
Krypto isn't Superman's dog in this movie. He's Supergirl's. The last scene of the film tells us that she's the one who's responsible for his lack of training.
Where is my dog?
Okay, well, this is why he has behavioral issues.
No boundaries.
Thing I hate about that is that moment was completely compromised by Krypto busting in and the joke of him thrashing Lex Luthor around. This could have been the real back and forth moment between Lex and Superman. It's completely compromised, cut off with that Krypto joke.
This isn't a moment where Jeremy is wrong, it's just a moment where I disagree with them. I think it's quite fitting that a man who wants to be taken this seriously gets taken out in this way, you know, being ragdolled like a dog toy. It's humiliating, and he deserves it. Even more so when you remember Luthor tortured this same dog.
I feel like if Supergirl landed into the Fortress of Solitude drunk, Superman would probably lecture her. Lecture her about drinking and flying. I mean, it sounds silly to say out loud, but I feel like if a Kryptonian's drunk and they land on Earth, there is a possibility that they're gonna come in too hot and create a crater where a city used to be. That's a dangerous thing. Why would Superman just roll his eyes and be like, oh, she likes to get shit-faced. All right, super bots, what were we talking about?
The look Superman gives her at the end kind of tells me that he has lectured her about this many times. Plus, to have a lecture from Superman at this point in the film would have risked ruining the upbeat and hopeful tone the movie was going out on. I would love to see some sort of conversation like that between these two at some point, though.
But the first mid-credit scene is Superman and Krypto sitting on the moon looking at the Earth. It's a cute picture, it's a cute scene. Guy and his dog. Wait a minute, though Superman can hold his breath, he does need oxygen, because when those nanobots were getting into his lungs, it was going to kill him. The nanobots were going to kill him because he wouldn't have air in his lungs. Mid-credit scene of Superman and Krypto sitting on the moon without masks.
The film establishes that Superman can hold his breath for over an hour. Now, I can hear some of you saying that Superman couldn't travel all the way to the moon in under an hour, right? Well, I did some research, and while it can wildly vary how fast Superman is able to fly, Google tells me that he can fly as fast as 660 million miles per hour. That would put him past our sun in less than 10 minutes.
But they didn't tell us he could go that fast in this movie.
That's a good point, hyperbolic caricature of a hypothetical YouTube comment. Let's be more thorough. In the opening crawl of this film, it tells us Superman lost his first fight 3 minutes ago. We then see Superman crash into the snowy plains of the Arctic. Metropolis is located in Delaware according to Lois Lane's license plate. The Arctic is roughly 2,500 to 3,000 miles from Delaware. That means Superman was traveling roughly 1,000 miles a minute. But even at that speed, he wouldn't reach the moon in that time frame. The moon is about 240,000 miles away. However, we need to keep in mind that Superman is severely injured in the opening scene, and he was still traveling that fast. It's not a stretch to assume that he can fly much, much faster. Or maybe he has a spaceship. I don't know. Well, that about wraps it up for this video. Have you seen Superman? What did you think about it? Do you agree with Jeremy's critiques? Comment your thoughts down below. Anyways guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Please like, subscribe, and as always, take care.